It starts with a simple question. What if winning a war had less to do with bravery and more to do with how much suffering a society could endure? Imagine standing in Europe on the eve of the Second World War. Streets are still lit. Cafes are still open. Trains still run on time. From the outside, life feels almost normal. And that is the most unsettling part. Because beneath that calm surface, entire nations are quietly preparing to break themselves in order to survive. This war would not be decided by one heroic charge or one brilliant general. It would be decided by decisions made far from the battlefield. Decisions that turned everyday life into part of the fight. Decisions that were brutal, efficient, and irreversible. And once they were made, there was no turning back.
Our Father,
Before we go
in
any
heaven,
deeper into this
hallowed
story
be
together,
thy name.
let me
Thy
pause
kingdom
for just
come,
a second.
Thy will be done.
If you enjoy slow, immersive history told like a story rather than a lecture, consider supporting the channel in your own quiet way. Like a subscription or a thoughtful comment helps this space grow more than you might think. And if you feel like it, tell me
Indeed,
where
my
you are
lord.
listening from
And the
right
swan
now.
is cooked to perfection.
A late
Here
night
is the
in
next
New
bundle
York,
for
a
you.
quiet afternoon in Europe, I read far more comments than you might expect.
We make good progress today.
All right, settle in. Let the background noise soften, and let's continue. When the Second World War begins in 1939, it becomes clear very quickly that this will not be a traditional conflict. Governments do not simply mobilize armies. They mobilize entire populations. This is what
This is all we
historians
have.
later call total war,
God
a
help us.
phrase that sounds tidy,
It's not
but
enough.
hides something deeply unsettling. In Britain, ration books appear almost overnight. Sugar, meat, butter, fuel. Everything is counted. Even clothing is regulated. In Germany, factories shift to round-the-clock production. Civilian industries disappear, replaced by weapons vehicles and ammunition. In the Soviet Union, the scale is almost unimaginable. Between 1941 and 1942, more than 1,500 factories are dismantled and moved east, piece by piece, beyond the reach of German bombers. Workers sleep beside machines.
I have heard the testimony.
Children grow up
and
to
my
the sound of
judgment is
steel
final.
and steam. This is not just efficiency. It is endurance turned into policy. The brutality of total war is quiet. It does not always explode. Sometimes it simply wears people down. Hunger becomes
Saw
normal.
them near the old mill.
Exhaustion
By the
becomes
saints, how
routine.
many?
Too many.
Survival itself becomes a
Must warn the others
contribution to
before
victory.
dawn.
Did you hear
Civilians
about
are no
Thomas and the
longer
miller's
protected
daughter?
observers.
Oh, I heard everything.
They are
The nerve of that
participants
man.
whether they choose to be or not. There is a grim irony here. The nations that survive are not always the ones with the best plans or the most elegant strategies. Often they are the ones willing to accept the highest cost, measured not only in lives, but in years of human strain. And this is only the beginning.
We must demand action.
Because once entire societies are mobilized, the battlefield itself begins to change. Speed
We cannot
replaces
let them take the
patience.
grain. We
Shock
must hide it before
replaces
the Lord's
tradition.
men arrive tomorrow.
But
And
where?
the next tactic will move faster than anyone expects. And then, almost without warning, the war begins to move faster than anyone thinks possible. One moment, Europe is bracing itself for a long, grinding conflict. Something like the First World War all over again. Trenches, stalemates, years of waiting. And the next moment, entire
swear the
countries
pig
are
looked him right in the
collapsing
eye
in a
before it
matter of
bolted.
weeks,
You always were one
not
for tall
months,
tales, Thomas.
not
It
years,
is good to laugh.
weeks.
Down with the new
This
taxes.
shock has a name, Blitzkrieg, lightning war.
We won't
At its
stand for
core,
this.
Blitzkrieg is frighteningly simple. Do not give the enemy time to think. Do not let them adjust. Strike so fast and in so many places at once that confusion becomes your greatest ally. Tanks surge forward in concentrated groups, not spread thin.
They know we're here.
Aircraft dive ahead
don't
of
have
them,
much time.
destroying rail lines, bridges, and communication centers. Infantry follows close behind, cleaning up pockets of resistance before they can regroup. In May 1940, this strategy is unleashed against France. On paper, France has one of the strongest armies in the world. Its defenses are formidable. Its soldiers are experienced. And yet, within 6 weeks, Paris falls. How does this happen? German forces avoid the heavily fortified Maginot Line and instead push through the Ardennes forest, a region many French commanders believe is unsuitable for tanks. That assumption turns out to be catastrophic. By the time French leaders realize what is happening, German armored divisions are already deep behind their lines, cutting off entire armies from supply and command. Here is the truly brutal part. Many French units are not defeated in open battle. They are simply outpaced. Orders arrive too late. Reinforcements move in the wrong direction. Soldiers surrender not because they lack courage, but because the war has moved past them. And this is where Blitzkrieg shows its most dangerous power: psychological collapse. Speed creates panic. Panic spreads faster than bullets. When phones stop working and roads are clogged with refugees, even strong armies begin to unravel. There is a dark humor here, if you allow yourself a quiet smile. Some German tank commanders later admit they are advancing so fast, they worry about outrunning their own maps. Victory, it turns out, can be almost as chaotic as defeat. But Blitzkrieg carries a hidden weakness. It burns fuel equipment and men at an incredible rate. It depends on momentum.
The harvest fails again.
Once that momentum slows, once resistance stiffens or supply lines stretch too far, lightning war loses its magic. Still, in these early years, the lesson is unmistakable. Modern war no longer rewards patience alone. It rewards speed, coordination, and the courage to gamble everything on the first strike. And as armies race across borders faster than civilians can flee, the war prepares to enter a far darker phase. One where speed no longer matters as much as endurance. One where victory is decided not in days or weeks, but in suffering measured month by month. As the speed fades, the war begins to slow down in a very different way. Not with relief, but with weight. By late 1942, the lightning strikes have lost their power. Supply lines stretch too far. Machines break down. Men are tired. And so the war settles into something older, colder, and far more unforgiving. This is where victory is no longer about moving faster than the enemy. It is about lasting longer than them. Nowhere does this become clearer than in the city of Stalingrad. Stalingrad is not just a strategic location on the Volga River. It is a symbol, a city bearing the Soviet leader's name. Losing it would be humiliating. Holding it would be defiant. And so both sides decide quietly at first that retreat is not an option. What follows is not a battle in the traditional sense. It is a slow collapse of the human body. The fighting takes place building by building, stairwell by stairwell. Soldiers joke bitterly that the front line is sometimes only a few rooms wide. During the day, artillery reduces factories and apartments into rubble. At night, men crawl through ruins so quietly they can hear the other side breathing. Winter arrives early and without mercy. Temperatures drop well below freezing. According to Soviet records, some soldiers receive fewer than 200 grams of bread
Our
per
Father,
day.
who art in heaven,
German
hallowed be
supply
thy
planes
name.
fail to
Thy
deliver enough
kingdom
food
come,
or
Thy
ammunition.
will be done.
Frostbite becomes as dangerous as bullets. Here is the cruel logic of attrition. No dramatic breakthroughs, no heroic charges. Just exhaustion, hunger, disease, and time.
Another cup of
The
wine,
enemy
my
is
dear.
not
This
defeated.
vintage is superb.
They are
Indeed,
worn
my
down.
lord.
Historians
And the swan is cooked
estimate
to
that more than 2
Here is
million
the next bundle
soldiers
for
and
you.
civilians are killed, wounded, or captured
Thank you kindly.
in the Battle
We
of
make good progress
Stalingrad.
today.
It becomes the deadliest battle in human history. And when the German 6th Army finally surrenders in February 1943, the psychological impact is enormous. For the first time, the myth of German invincibility is shattered. There is a bitter lesson here. Attrition
This is all we
rewards
have.
those who can suffer longer.
God help us.
Not smarter, not faster,
It's not enough.
longer. It is not elegant, it is not inspiring, but it works. Have you ever wondered why some wars seem to drag on endlessly, even when victory feels inevitable? This is why. Because once endurance becomes the weapon, stopping feels almost impossible, and yet the war is still not decided. Because while soldiers freeze in ruins and cities are ground into dust, another kind of brutality is unfolding far from the front lines. One that targets civilians directly from the sky
Silence in the
above.
court.
By this point in the war,
I have
the
heard
front
the
lines are
testimony,
no longer
and
the
my
only
judgment
places
is
where
final.
people are dying. The battlefield begins to rise into the air. As ground combat grinds on a different strategy, takes shape far above the cities of Europe. It is quiet at first, almost theoretical. If factories make
Saw them near
weapons
the old
and
mill.
workers run
By the saints,
factories,
how many?
then breaking a nation's ability to fight
We must warn the
might
others
not
before
require
dawn.
defeating its armies
Did you
at
hear
all.
about Thomas and the miller's daughter?
It might
Oh,
only
I heard
require
everything.
breaking
The
its
nerve of
cities.
that man.
This idea becomes known as strategic bombing. Night after night, fleets of bombers cross the skies. British aircraft focus on area bombing, especially after 1942, targeting entire industrial cities. The United States joins later
Takes too
with
much
daylight
grain.
precision
We will
bombing,
starve
aiming
this
for
winter.
factories,
He
oil
ignores our
refineries,
pleas.
and rail
We must
yards.
demand action.
In theory, this is about infrastructure. In reality, civilians are always beneath the explosions.
We cannot
Hamburg,
let them take the grain.
1943.
We must hide it before the
In
Lord's
Operation
men arrive
Gomorrah,
tomorrow.
Allied
But where?
bombing creates a firestorm so intense that temperatures rise above 800 degrees Celsius. Winds rush inward with hurricane force. Asphalt melts. People suffocate in shelters meant to protect them. German records estimate over 40,000 civilians are killed in just 1 week, and yet the bombing continues. Why? Because slowly,
swear the
almost
pig looked him
invisibly,
right
it
in the eye
works.
before it
German
bolted.
aircraft
You
production
always were one
begins
for
to
tall
falter.
tales, Thomas.
Oil shortages cripple
Down
tank
with the new
divisions.
taxes.
Rail networks struggle to move troops.
We won't stand for this.
Historian Richard Overy later notes that by 1944, German war production is increasingly constrained not by lack of labor, but by fuel and transport destruction caused by air raids. There is a cruel paradox here.
We have to leave
The
right
bombing
now.
does not break
They know we're
civilian
here.
morale in the dramatic
We don't have
way
much
planners
time.
once imagined. People endure, they rebuild, they keep going. But the system beneath them begins to crack, and sometimes there is dark human humor in the ruins. Survivors joke about learning to sleep through explosions. Children collect fragments of shrapnel like souvenirs. Adaptation becomes a survival skill. Still, the cost is staggering. Hundreds of thousands of civilians are killed across Europe. Cities that took centuries to build are reduced to ash in hours. So here is a question worth asking. Can a strategy be considered successful if it destroys what it claims to protect? Or is success in war defined only by who remains standing at the end? As the skies finally begin to clear, the war moves toward its conclusion. Armies advance. Borders collapse. And when the fighting stops, the world is left to reckon with what these brutal tactics have achieved and what they have forever changed.
That's the way.
When the guns finally
Scatter
fall
them well,
silent,
son.
the war does not
Every
truly
seed
end.
holds the promise of a
It
harvest.
exhales. Across Europe, people step cautiously into the quiet, as if noise itself might return if disturbed. Cities are broken. Railways twist into rusted knots. Families count who is missing and who will never come home. Victory has arrived, but it does not feel light. By 1945, the cost is almost beyond comprehension. Historians estimate more than 60 million people are dead worldwide, over half of them civilians. In Europe alone, entire regions have been emptied, rebuilt, and emptied again. The tactics that won the war have also reshaped what the world believes war should never become again. Total war taught governments that survival could demand everything. Blitzkrieg revealed how speed and shock could collapse nations before they fully understood they were under attack. Attrition proved that endurance could be deadlier than genius. Strategic bombing showed that modern war no longer respects the distance between soldier and civilian. And yet here is the uncomfortable truth.
That is not my concern.
These tactics worked.
expect payment
They
by
shortened
sundown.
some battles. They broke supply lines. They exhausted enemies. They helped bring the war to an end. History does not reward intentions. It records outcomes. After the war, leaders gather in quiet rooms to try to make sense of what has happened. The Geneva Conventions are expanded. New rules are written. Words like war crimes and crimes against humanity enter the global vocabulary with weight and consequence. The world agrees, at least on paper, that there must be limits. Whether those limits always hold is another story. There is a strange, almost human contradiction in all of this. Humanity creates brutal methods to survive brutality. Then it promises never to use them again, until fear returns, until survival feels uncertain, until history begins to repeat itself softly at first. If there is a lesson hidden beneath the rubble, it might be this. Wars are not won by tactics alone. They are paid for by people who never chose the strategy. Ordinary lives absorb extraordinary decisions. So the next time someone says history is just dates and battles, remember this. History is also hunger, speed, cold, fire, endurance, and the quiet afterward. Thank you for staying with me through this story.
Hallowed be thy name.
If you found
Thy
meaning
kingdom
here,
come, thy
or
will
even a
be
moment
done.
of reflection, I hope you will continue this journey with me. More stories are waiting, resting quietly in the past, ready to be told when you are ready to listen. Until then, take care of yourself,
Another cup of wine, my
and
dear.
I will see you
This
in the
vintage is
next
superb.
story.
Indeed.